Well, hello, good morning. It's morning here as I speak with you. And I hope that you're feeling reasonably okay today, because really, I suppose that's all we can hope for. And we can trust that everything will be all right. Well, the title of this, as you know, is God Moves in Mysterious Ways. And of course, the other part to that is his wonders to perform. And yes, of course, we can see the wonders of what he's made all around us on any day or night of the week, courtesy of him. And of course, we understand that he has ministering angels. And those ministering angels sort of filter downward, if you like, to us. And we receive them as their ministrations as our guides and our helpers. And also individuals in spirit who and groups who are responsible for giving healing and attending to various functions of the human body, whilst they themselves are not in them. And this is a fact. And it's often said, well, if you can't see God and you can't see spirits and you can't see all these things, you can't see angels every day or anytime sometimes, how do we know this is real, that it's true? Because it seems so far-fetched, doesn't it? But, the fact is this, that you can see something that isn't apparently there by looking at the shape that it makes around itself. And if you like, the shape that God makes is the universe around the Great Spirit. And all the other individuals in spirit that I've mentioned, they are always known by the shapes that they make around them. It's quite simple. Imagine that there's a rainstorm and an invisible person is running through it. You would actually see that person who has substance, even if you couldn't see it, by the shape that the rain would make as that individual passed through. And that's how I would describe to you, how we know that this is a fact. The other reason that we know it's fact is because, I don't know about you, but I'm just here because I've been helped so much over the years. And I can look back as you can and look at all the tight spots you were in, all the difficulties you were in, sometimes the terrible things that you were involved with that happened to you. But we're here, aren't we? We're here now with each other, communicating with each other. And the reason that is because you've got through it all. I got through it all. We didn't do it on our own. And even when they have been medical issues, then the hands of the surgeons and the minds of the surgeons and the doctors, the physicians, all those who look after us, have been influenced by those in the world of spirit. And that's why we've come through this far. So I don't think it's difficult to prove that there is a God, that he moves in mysterious ways, he certainly performs wonders, and that there are indeed ministering angels, guides and helpers, and healers, all there in the realms of spirit. Some people call that heaven, and of course it is heavenly. The adjective heavenly is descriptive of something beautiful, utopian, somewhere wonderful, somewhere we aspire to live at some point, and so we shall. But meanwhile, while we're down here, I guess it's our duty to spread the word. And for me, particularly as a spiritualist and as a Christian, to actually spread that word of our knowledge that there is so much that in every religion and every spirituality that draws on this same premise, and that will accept what we say, what I'm saying. And you might notice some sort of a bit of noise or whatever, noise is off, as they say in the stage directions. But my door is open out onto the world because my partner and the dogs are out. So therefore I can have the luxury of having an open door onto the world there, and nobody's going to run out and get themselves run over or anything, you know, the dogs being what they like. And so there we are. You know, I give an address, it's grandly called an address, every Thursday evening at the Liverpool Christian Spiritualist Church. And we never know what's going to come up, and I never know either. And that's the other thing that we do. We allow ourselves to be moved by the Spirit and to inspire us and to accept that inspiration on that level in order to speak some truths, to interest people in our way of life and our philosophy, and to involve them in our knowledge. And I know that many of you who will be watching me will already be absolutely convinced or convicted, as some Christian groups would call it, of the fact that there is a God and there are angels and everything else besides, all good and Holy Spirit. And that is the main thing. You know, so many people worry about what we talk about and say, oh, you know, we must be evil. You know, we shouldn't do this. And you could only be talking to demons because it says in the Bible that everybody's asleep until the last trumpet shall sound. Well, actually, if you look properly at the Bible, you'll find loads and loads of information to the contrary, including the fact that Jesus himself demonstrated it so very, very, very adequately. That, you know, like I've always said, Doris Stokes, bless her, you know, that great medium, and she was a wonderful thinker as well. And she used to say, you can't die for the life of you. And basically that's what Jesus himself was demonstrating. You know, he allowed himself to be executed because he could have escaped. He could have dealt with that, but he knew that he had to fulfill what God had sent him to do, which was to live as he did, to preach and minister as he did, and to die to this life as he did, because otherwise, you know, nobody would have probably heard anything about the spiritual way that he proclaimed, and he knew he had to go along with that. In fact, at one point he asked God, please take this cup away from me, you know, do I have to do this? And of course he did, and he did it, and great sacrifice of his own earthly life for all others. But the point is this, that we know as spiritualists that this life, our existence here, is one that we enjoy. We're supposed to enjoy it. As happiness is mentioned a lot of times also in the Bible and in other sacred texts too. We're supposed to sort of try and get some semblance of joy out of it in our bodily self, earthly body. But we've come from spirit and we go back to spirit. And spiritualists know this. So death itself holds no fear for any of us. It's just if we can scramble to get as much done as possible while we're down here, that is the effort that we have to make. And one of those things is that the more effort you put in to perhaps helping others in whatever way you can, to spreading some light and sunshine around, you know, you will get helped. And just think of all the terrible things that you've had to go through. And I know I often think about some of the awful things I've been through and wondering why on earth did I have to do all that? Why did I do that? Oh, we all have that. But, the fact is that if we hadn't have had the help of those ministering angels and our guides and helpers, now everybody has got them, whether they're aware of it or not. We have a duty, don't we, while we're down here, to spread that knowledge, to tell people, no, you're not on your own, even if you think you are. If you're on a bed of pain or sickness, if you're trials and tribulations in this life, you're not alone. There are those around you. Harriet Beecher Stowe, that wonderful writer, American, of course, who actually wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. She was a staunch abolitionist, and although some people poo-poo that story, it did a great deal to lift people's awareness of the plight of those African Americans who'd been brought to America as slaves. Terrible, terrible thing. But Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote poems, and she was a devout spiritualist. Christian, yes, Christian spiritualist. And she said, they are all about us like a cloud. And, all those people that you've loved and feel that you've lost are actually there helping you, because they're also instruments of help. If you're having a really bad time of it and you've got a loved one over there, perhaps somebody who was really close, can ask them for help and you will get it. You will get it. It's marvellous. Now, let me see. I've got people saying things. Susan, good morning. And Margaret, good morning. I can show that and show that. There you are. Marked as people who are here. Now, it says here that people can't post comments or something to Facebook. I don't understand any of it. I just carry on. I've plugged in this webcam thing, and it says go live, and that's what I do. And I try and do my best in this little time we have together, just to put something across to help, because we all need that help. I often think, when people suffer from sort of swollen limbs or, swollen ankles, and, I'm not mentioning myself, I often think that is unshed tears when people say there's fluid in certain areas of the body. And I think, there are often times when perhaps you haven't cried, when they haven't cried, when perhaps they should have, if they'd have been able to, and that tearfulness has built up somehow and has a bodily manifestation. I mean, that's as good a reason as any other, is it not? And it's a good reason for actually facing ourselves. These things where they say, what would you say to your 16-year-old self? I've seen that come up on Facebook, for instance, as a sort of little thing, a game they play. Or what 3 words would you tell yourself if you were 25 or something like that? And I can never make my mind up, don't do it. Do not do it. That's 4, so that's wrong, not 3. Unless but the fact is this, that everything that we've done and everything that's happened to us, it seems that it had to happen, and otherwise we wouldn't be where we are now. And would you swap where you are now, right now, this minute, really and truly, for any time back then? Think about that. That wonderful hymn that was written by John Newton, who was a slave trader and saw the light and became converted to abolition and Christian spirituality, and he wrote Amazing Grace, and heartfelt words. And they're words that have been so popular because we can all relate to that, can't we? Jesus said himself, let those without sin cast the first stone, when somebody was going to be stoned to death for a transgression. And indeed, none of us have come through life guilt-free, I don't think, of transgression. I mean, if you have, then really, it would be amazing, because I should think you'd be walking around in this sort of glow of light. But really and truly, we have to look at our own transgressions, and we have to look at our own failings, and we have to look at the disasters in our life, and cry about them, and be sorry about them, and then forgive ourselves somehow for that. Because really, you have to, show mercy to yourself. You have to show mercy first to others. So forgive everybody else, and then you can forgive yourself, perhaps for succumbing to things that you shouldn't have. And we know about flattery, and lots of people get hooked into difficult situations because they're flattered, or they feel that they're wanted and loved, when perhaps it's an imposter. So there we are. So we all have reasons to look back on various aspects and incidents and occurrences and events in our lives that we could never have got through on our own. If you think of some of it, no way did you do that on your own. And I just think that mediums, who are the very basis for spiritualism, spiritualism came into being because of mediumship. The mediums, the Fox family, who actually listened to this man on the other side of life, who'd been kicking up a stink trying to attract their attention. And he did that, and he was able to start communicating with them because they were so clever. They'd heard about Morse code. This is a Methodist family in Hydesville, New York State. And they knew about Morse code, and they used that alphabetic system to converse with him, communicate with him. And it was just wonderful. And he told them all about himself, and just an ordinary person. And that's what began modern spiritualism. And so here we are today. And we need to talk perhaps as well, because it's today. It's a day, DDay, 6th of June, Dunkirk landings. And one of our number at Littlepool Spiritualist Church, Len Willoughby, was on the beaches that day, today, all those years ago, and helped to free Europe from the heel of the Nazis. And we must remember all those who gave their earthly lives in order for us to be here today. And Len, bless him, survived. He was injured, but he was survived. And he used to come to the services, and in June he would wear his beret, and he was very proud with all the badges on and the medals and things. And he was a great character and a wonderful spiritualist. So it's nice to be able to remember our loved ones and know that Len isn't just gone. He's actually just there, a whisper away. He's probably listening to me warbling on, because he probably heard his name mentioned. And, I know that he sends his love, and as do all those many, many war dead who fought for our freedoms, and our freedoms to be spiritualists. That is so important, because do you know, in Europe it was still a no-no. And what can we say about that? We won't say too much about that, especially now the French people are, or the French fishing fleets are kicking up and annoying us. They've had hundreds and hundreds of years practice at doing that. We have to extend our love and friendship and thankfulness to our American cousins overseas, because their troops also helped us to do that job. Wonderful, wonderful. D-Day, 6th of June, brilliant date. So there you are, and that's why we're spiritualists. And we're spiritualists also because spiritualism started in America. And so many things started in America, didn't they? Well, of course, it was the New World. And I expect you know that the Wesley family were disturbed by lots and lots of knockings for months. But they would rather ignore it, And so whoever it was went away. And then about 100 years later or so, they got through again. So it was brilliant. But yeah, so the next time you're in a spot of trouble or bother, send your thoughts out to your loved ones who are on the other side and say, please help me. You can tell them anything, any intimate problem you can share, because intimate is of the body, isn't it? And they're not bothered about bodies anymore. And they understand very well, in a practical way, that our physical body is what it is. And, you know, it would be nice to be perfect and have this perfect, healthy life and everything, but that doesn't happen. And they'll stand by and they will help. Whatever you've got wrong with you, ask them about it and they will help. So somebody close to you is on the other side, let them help you. And I remember once that I was in a spot of bother myself. I was in one of these machines that they put you in, and I'm claustrophobic. And I must tell you this then, because Kathy said to me, you should tell them about some of your experiences. And I thought, no, perhaps not. But here we go. You see, I was in this machine and I had claustrophobia, but I have all sorts of other phobias. And at one time, I was clinically diagnosed by psychiatrists as being chronically phobic. So basically, it meant that I was frightened to go out, frightened to stay in, frightened of small places, frightened of big places, frightened to lie down or to stand up, frightened to get in a bath, frightened to not go in a bath. It's unimaginable terror, and you live with that. And you know those stickers that say not all disabilities are apparent or whatever, you know, you can't see all disabilities. That for sure is one that you can't see. But the person who's experiencing that, believe me, is terrible. So the thing is, there I was and I was never cured, by the way. And I got like that because I took drugs. There. I took drugs for some years and it was dreadful. It was a total downward spiral. But at the same time, those years, I hope, were not wasted because I've tried to build on those experiences. And on top of that, as a minister, and people have always come for help, guidance. And I've always thought to myself, there's nothing that can shock me about anybody's lifestyle or anything that's happening with them, because I do really, truly understand. So that's the thing. So there I was with my claustrophobia in this machine, this MRI machine, and I was in such a state. And I asked Jesus, I said, Jesus, please, I know you're busy, but could you please send me an angel? Because I've got to have this, because I'm due an operation on my head, which I was. It was when they dug this tumour out. And they need to see all where it's gone and everything. So the surgeon has helped. And I suddenly felt somebody lying in that tunnel beside me within like a fraction of a second of that. And I opened my eyes and there was an ex-husband, who was a huge man, lying down by the side of me, leaning on his elbow, saying hello. And I said, what are you doing here? I forgot all about the machine. I wasn't there. What are you doing? He said, Jesus sent me. So I said, but I asked for an angel. You see, I was always an argumentative person. I asked for an angel. And he said, well, I'm sorry about that, but Jesus asked me, so I've come to see you. And we talked and talked about all sorts of lovely things, the children, the grandchildren. And then he said, oh, and Mum and Dad want to say hello. And I thought, wow. Now his parents were part of Billy Graham's evangelical moral rearmament. And I thought they would certainly not want to speak to me now, not these days that I'd sort of realised my true sexual identity and all those things. But no, he said, look, there they are. And when I looked down this sort of huge tunnel, there was Nellie and Joe waving and smiling. And I thought, wow, I was, in my mind, I was waving at them because I couldn't. I was stuck, in this machine. But I felt that they would understand that I was waving back. And then I heard this voice say, "We're bringing you out now." And as they drew me out, Ray was still there. And then nothing. Then it was still this little thing that I'd come out of. And of course, I was weeping. They said, "Oh, there." They thought I was very brave. Have tea and chocolate biscuits. And you've been in there 47 minutes. Now, that was me with severe claustrophobia. How do they do that? So you see, we all have help. If I got help, the state I've been in, and the kind of person I've been, you sure as eggs is eggs will get help when you ask. So I'll leave you with that. How long have we been chatting? Oh, right, nearly half an hour. The reason that I made it this time, actually, was because I know that I believe Wimbledon Church will have a service at 11, and lots of other churches have said that they're going to have their online services in the mornings again, or opening up for morning services. So I thought I didn't want to get involved in stop people going to their usual spots to enjoy their own services or whatever. But I did want to speak for a little while and just sort of offer you a little bit of something to think about, a little bit of upliftment. And now I can see other people. Oh, look. Oh, yes. There we are. It definitely doesn't feel right at the time. Absolutely. Oh, my dear. There's Anthony. Denise, now you're famous, Denise. Suzanne, you've already. Well, I just hope that that you will continue to feel loved, to know that you can ask your loved ones to help you. They might even let you see them sometimes. It's contrary to what people accuse us of. They say, "Well, we're calling up the dead." Well, you can call as much as you like. If they don't want to come, they won't. That is, I can. Oh, look, infamous, maybe, yeah. Yeah, I always loved the Julius Caesar line in Carry On. Was it Carry On Cleopatra? Where Kenneth Williams is playing Julius Caesar and he rushes down. So infamy, they've all got it in for me. Wonderful camp characters that he used to play. And unfortunately, he lived his life in the closet. Well, those were the times, weren't they? But yeah, so I'm certainly not going back in any closet, that's for sure. And that goes for all the other things that's wrong with me as well. I mean, anybody who's suffered from what they now call mental health issues, don't they? They didn't call it that in the old days. They just call it like something else anyway. But it wasn't that. It wasn't so posh. So anybody who's suffering from, aberrations of the mental variety, take heart, because here I am chatting away. And although my eldest son always said, "Listen, Mum, if you keep saying that you're talking to the dead, we've decided we're all going to have you committed." This was when I first started out. Talking to the dead is a very good option, I'm telling you. So what is more, if you develop your mediumship a bit, they can talk back and you can hear them. It's wonderful. I should also mention that I've got this book which has been compiled by Reverend Nick Brown. There, look, that was his lovely cover design. He said he thought it sort of typified me, which I suppose so. Spirit Guides, Iconoclast, the name of the group. Questions with answers through trance mediumship. Well, of course, that mediumship that I've mentioned, you can develop. And there are all sorts of different levels of consciousness, and which we know anyway. But there are different levels of mediumship too, altered states of consciousness. And if you attain a reasonably good attunement with those on the other side, they can speak, and you can relay if you want to, or if they ask you to. You can relay their communications, their messages through. And I used to do that every week when I was the editor of Psychic News. They asked me to do it. And all of a sudden, just fairly recently, all those questions with answers that used to be called To You With Love From Us, which is also on the, Nick put that on. To You With Love From Us, that's what they used to say. They're questions that a spirit group actually answered, just all sorts of different questions about all sorts of different things. And that was through my trance mediumship, as we call it. And happy I am that it's out there now, because as I said, these old copies of Psychic News suddenly turned up, and they were all my answers through them to questions. So it was one a week, and they're all in there. If you want to see sort of the layout, sort of different days, different days of the week. Look at that. So a bit of a long time ago now, but so much is such a long time ago. And Margaret Atherton, yeah, I'm going to put you up there saying that, Margaret, because it was absolutely true. Oh, look, lovely Margaret. Excellent, excellent. So I hope that you've enjoyed our little chat today. I'll let you go so that you can get on with sort of tuning into your own church, go out to your church services, if those that are open. And I wish you joy of today, which is free because so many people are not here to enjoy it with us. And my parents' generation and grandparents' generation, and great grandparents who got through that Second World War, we thank them for everything they did for us. And thank you for the day. And to mention Lyn, of course, again, wonderful, wonderful people. So there we are. If you want a message, as you know, get a book. Oh, here we are. This one's here. You get a book. If you want a message, we could sort of find. Oh, look, I've got June the 17th. It says. No, I won't. What I will say is this: that what they say in the end, they were being asked about euthanasia for human beings, and this is their last part that I will tell you. We point this out as justification, should it be required, for our argument against it, because they've spoken, of course. Argument against it. May the light and love of the Great Spirit forever shine upon you, each one of you, and you should live out your earthly life according to the great plan, and none shall take it from you. Amen. Now, who's saying that they were not listening to what we were talking about? Because out of this whole book, that's what I was prompted to say to you. They wanted me to say all of it, but I said, no, we haven't got the time. You see, that they allow you a little bit of license sometimes. There. So I say God bless you. Have a really good day. I hope that if you've got pain, that it'll subside a bit. Whatever kind of pain you have, whether it's of the mind or body. If you feel that your spirit is in pain, pray. Have it relieved. You will be relieved. And I will see you again. Now, don't forget, on a Thursday evening, you can tune in to Littleport Christian Spiritualists. We're on the Facebook page. And I usually put it on my page as well as a link. And I ordinarily say a few words, as we know. And last Thursday you talked about Elvis Presley and his spirituality, and Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese Christian writer, poet and artist, and how Elvis Presley was absolutely, devoted to his work, and had his own book of his called The Prophet. So there you are. Doesn't matter how famous you are, or how not famous you are, or even infamous, Margaret. Oh no, Denise, wasn't it? Denise, you said infamous. God is there for you, all his ministering angels, and all your loved ones too. So God bless you. And I'll now go and get myself a cup of tea, I think, celebrate with a cup of tea. And I wish you a very, very, very good day, and lots of blessings. And if you have anyone who needs healing, just send your thoughts out. Just ask. You don't have to even do the formal prayer bit, just ask, like you would ask the next door neighbour for a cup of sugar. There you are. That's what I'm told to tell you. God bless. Bye for now.